12 years ago, a red Mustang idled under my window, and my gut knew before my head caught up. She'd been tracking my every move, demanding schedules, while her Wednesdays kept disappearing. So I vanished too, into a parking lot across the street, work boots on, coffee cold, heartbeat louder than traffic. My old laptop waited at home, webcam primed. A ping lit the screen, a door opened, and a familiar face, her cousin-in-law, strolled in like he owned the air. The room washed blue. My mouth tasted metal. I built a link, sent it to 2 group chats, and listened. By the 4th call, everything was ringing. I stepped out of the car and started walking. Before I tell you anything else, let me say this happened 12 years ago. Today I'm happily married, a dad of 3, and I don't regret a single decision I made back then. For context, the man at the center of this mess was her cousin-in-law. Back then, I'd been with my fiancée for 3 years. Somewhere along the way, the sweetness turned to surveillance. She wanted every detail of my day, insisted on having my schedule in advance, and if I deviated even 15 minutes, she'd spiral. She always said it was her paranoia from past relationships, that she just had a bad feeling. I had never cheated, never strayed, never given her a reason to be suspicious. Still, the way she tightened her grip felt wrong, like steel hands around my life. One afternoon she asked for my schedule so she could make plans, and while she was asking, I noticed she kept glancing at her phone, thumbs working a text thread in the corner of her screen. It was subtle, but it put a stone in my stomach. I wanted to trust her, but the stone didn't move. My job can be intense, over 40 hours a week sometimes, but if I put in the time, I can take time off later as long as the work gets done. It's flexible, which I loved. She worked at a fabrication facility, and so did her brother. He was a fabricator, and she was the shipping manager. Her brother and I were tight, still are, actually. We can laugh about this now, though back then, nothing about it felt funny. I messaged him because I wanted to plan something special for her, a surprise a little ahead of our anniversary so it would really land. He did me a favor and shared her schedule. That's where the first crack split wide open. Without telling me, she'd been skipping her overtime and changing her shifts. According to the schedule, she worked 12-hour shifts Monday through Friday, except Wednesdays, when she only worked a half day. But he explained she'd actually been taking those Wednesdays off entirely for a while, right around the time she became suffocatingly controlling with me. The timing hit like a cold splash of water. I told myself to breathe and think. I decided I'd check just once, on a Wednesday, to see how she spent the day she claimed she was at work. I didn't know it yet, but that Wednesday would blow my world open. I had several days of comp time stacked up, so taking a Wednesday was nothing. That morning, I put on my work gear like always, kissed her on the cheek like always, and told her I'd see her later. Then I left as if I were heading to the job. Our apartment complex had 2 exits that fed onto the same road, and across the way there was a shopping center with a lot where I could park and see both exits. I tucked my car near the back and settled in, the steering wheel warm against my palms. The clock ticked like a metronome, my heart keeping time with it. Minutes stretched and folded. After about an hour, a red Mustang rolled into view, shiny as a brand new candy apple. What made my breath catch wasn't just the car, it was the distinctive decal on the back window. I knew that car. It belonged to her cousin by marriage. Just the car, it was the distinctive decal on the back window. I knew that car. It belonged to her cousin by marriage. Seeing it there at our complex on a Wednesday she was supposed to be working, felt like hearing a door slam inside my chest. Even then, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Okay, I told myself, maybe he's dropping something off. Maybe it's nothing. But I had no idea what I was about to see. As a precaution, I'd done some due diligence beforehand. We had an old laptop we kept on the desk in our small office area, positioned so the webcam had a clear view of the living room, the bedroom door, the bathroom entrance, and part of the kitchen. I'd set it up for remote access and configured an alert whenever the camera detected motion. My phone buzzed, motion detected. My fingers were suddenly all thumbs as I opened the remote viewer. The feed popped up, grainy at first, then sharpening into the familiar view of our living room. The front door opened, and he walked in like he owned the place. She was on him in a heartbeat. Before I could even breathe, she reached up, unbuttoned his shirt, and kissed him like she'd been starving. My mind went white noise silent. Then it came roaring back, hot and bright, 1,000 tiny shards of thought all at once. I should have been shaking, but I felt weirdly still, like my heart had gone into some emergency mode. I copied the stream and generated a URL. It wasn't my proudest impulse, but it was my clearest. We had 2 group texts, one with family, one with friends, and both of them were in both threads. While they tangled themselves together right there on our couch, I sent the link to both groups. For a couple of minutes, it was quiet on my end, just the tinny audio in my earbuds, the timestamp ticking up. Then my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Call after call, text after text. I stared at the screen and felt the shock recede, replaced by a cold clarity. Inside, their phones were buzzing on a table somewhere, ignored. They didn't even make it to the bedroom. They stayed in the living room, the place where we ate dinner together, where we watched movies, where we'd been planning a life, carelessly erasing me in the very space where I existed. It felt surreal. By the 4th or 5th call, I saw them pause. Her phone must have finally gotten her attention. He glanced down too, both of them frowning, both of them breathing hard, and I could feel the moment they realized something wasn't right. Before I go further, let me be clear about something. In my state, you can record inside your own home, on your own property, regardless of who's present. I was the only one on the lease. She wasn't allowed on it because of her poor credit, so the recording was legal. Her phone lit up again, and this time she answered. She put it on speaker, and I'll never forget the voice on the other end. It was his mother. "Stop fucking my son," she said. No greeting, no hesitation, just fury blazing through the speaker. They both froze like statues in a spotlight. My ex started stammering. "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" But the words tripped over each other and died. His mother didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She said there was a live feed, that I had sent it to the family, and that everyone was watching. My ex scrambled, grabbing every pillow off the couch to cover herself, face blotchy and eyes huge. He staggered, trying to yoke on his pants and shove his shoes on, and in his panic, he tripped. I watched him smack into my coffee table hard enough to leave a divot in the wood. The sound of it was a dull, ugly thunk, and he swore, bent over, clutching his head. No, to leave a divot in the wood. The sound of it was a dull, ugly thunk, and he swore, bent over, clutching his head. For a second I just watched, silent through the earbuds, the scene standing in for everything I'd been ignoring for months. Then I moved. I drove around to the front exit of the complex and parked. I wanted to be there when he came out. I wasn't sure what I was going to say or do, only that I didn't want him slinking away without facing me. He came out fast, eyes raw, shirt half tucked, and then he saw me. He stopped dead, like his legs had turned to concrete. His face crumpled and he started crying and apologizing all at once. I wish I could tell you I was the bigger man in that moment. I wasn't. Things got heated, words were exchanged, and more than words, it wasn't my best moment, but he was trespassing on my property, and that fact mattered later. Let's just say I wore a cast for 6 weeks, and he wasn't in any family photos for months. And that was only the beginning. When I walked back up to our apartment, the air felt thick with everything that had just happened. She was dressed now, tears streaking her face, hiccuping breaths that sounded like apologies without words. She looked so small, clutching those pillows like they could turn back time. I stood in the doorway and stared for a long beat. Then I asked, calmly, cruelly, whether what was on her face was snot or... Well, I told her not to answer because it didn't matter anyway. The silence after that felt like a vacuum. I told her she had 1 hour to pack her things and leave. Everything in that apartment was mine, the furniture, the electronics, the decor, except for her clothes, some makeup, and a few kitchen utensils. I set my watch and stepped aside. She tried to talk. She tried to explain. I kept my face as still as I could and didn't say anything more. The group chats were still going off. Friends calling, family texting, most of them in various states of shock or rage or both. In a small town, news like that runs faster than a rumor on a windy day. Her mother wouldn't take her in, too embarrassed. Her brothers wouldn't either, and his mother, the one on the phone, kicked him out the same day. By nightfall, the story was everywhere. People who'd never said hello to me before shot me sympathetic looks at the grocery store. She became, for a while, a name nobody wanted to be associated with. In the weeks that followed, I picked up the pieces. I leaned on my friends. I laughed with her brother about the absurdity of it all when we were ready to laugh. We still do, every now and then. He never lets her forget what she threw away. There was no police report for theft or anything dramatic like that. I kept records, saved proof, and moved forward. Slowly, the adrenaline drained out, and something steadier took its place. Looking back now, I can see the red flags that fluttered before the sirens. The sudden need to control my schedule, the hidden Wednesdays, the texts she thought I didn't notice, all the little things that felt like pebbles in my shoe, warning me that something wasn't right. I'm grateful I listened to that feeling, even if I didn't know what to do with it at first. I'm grateful I took a Wednesday and waited. I'm grateful I found out who she really was before I made vows I couldn't undo. 12 years later, I'm married to someone who doesn't need to know where I am every second to feel secure. We have 3 beautiful kids. When I tell this story now, I tell it like a ghost story about a life I almost lived. But at the time, it was a slow-motion disaster that flipped my world like a table in a crowded room. It taught me more about instincts, boundaries, and self-respect than any book or therapist could. Flee in a crowded room. It taught me more about instincts, boundaries, and self-respect than any book or therapist could. And it reminded me that sometimes the worst day of your life opens a door to the best. I wouldn't wish what happened on anyone. I wouldn't repeat my worst impulses either. But if you're listening to this and something in your life feels off, if your gut keeps whispering, don't ignore it. Because one quiet Wednesday might be the day you finally hear what it's been saying all along. And I had no idea back then that the life waiting on the other side would be the one I was meant to live. I thought I was building a life with someone who needed control to feel safe until the truth walked in without me. The shock, the calls, the mess, none of it hurt as much as realizing how small I'd made myself just to keep the peace. Ending it was messy and loud, but it taught me boundaries I trust, and years later my home runs on honesty instead of surveillance and suspicion. I didn't just leave a relationship that day. I left the version of me that mistook control